I tell my students there's over 300 verses in the New Testament on the resurrection.
The resurrection of Jesus Christ is the focal point of history. But how can we know for sure it's an historical fact? And does it really matter if it actually took place in history?
Christianity is fundamentally dependent on historical truths. In other words, if Jesus is not resurrected from the dead, then we don't have Christianity.
Consider the temple authorities having to deal with the fact that the tomb of Jesus was empty after Sunday morning.
So even though they never say the tomb was empty, they say the body was stolen. Same thing, it would have been least likely that the resurrection would have been announced if the moldering body of Jesus of Nazareth were still available. I mean, imagine that scenario. Caiaphas, confronted by the apostles claiming resurrection, would say, "Oh, you poor benighted fishermen, follow me. Let's go over the tomb, kick the stone aside. There you see, behold, the moldering body of Jesus." What is this claim about a resurrection? If that had been the case, if that tomb had the body of Jesus, there wouldn't have been a Christian church on earth at all. It would have died out as some peculiar Jewish sect.
I can tell you that my 6-year investigation of the resurrection of Jesus that resulted in my doctorate and a more than 700-page book, I tried to overturn every stone that I could to a fault. And I came to the conclusion after that study that the evidence for Jesus' physical resurrection from the dead was by far the best historical explanation of the known and indisputable historical data.
Dr. Michael Licona studied under Dr. Gary Habermas, who's been a professor at Liberty University for decades. Habermas has written or co-written 42 books on Jesus, half of them on the resurrection. He's developed what he calls the minimal facts approach to the historicity of the resurrection of Jesus.
Now, I sometimes call the minimal facts the lowest common denominator. If I take only those facts, this is the argument, if I take only those facts, which critical scholars will admit, I think I could build a case for the resurrection based only on that data.
Consider a few of these minimal facts. Fact 1, Jesus was crucified by the Romans.
Did this man die by crucifixion? Which is conceded by virtually every skeptic who studies this area. John Dominic Crossan, a famous skeptic, says Jesus died by crucifixion. It's as secure as any event in world history.
Fact 2, the disciples had experiences that they believed were appearances of the risen Christ.
The evidence comes in like this on many different fronts. The evidence is really good. Now, he shouldn't be walking around appearing to people if he were dead. Right. So that, to me, it's the appearances.
Fact 3, because of their insistence that they saw him risen from the dead, the disciples totally changed in disposition from being afraid to being bold and unstoppable, even in the face of severe opposition.
This truth radically transformed their lives from those who cowered at Jesus' death to now those who boldly proclaim the gospel and the message of his death and resurrection and offering salvation to all, and they boldly did this to their own harm. What's a fascinating thing to observe is that we have no less than 11 sources, ancient sources, that tell us that the disciples of Jesus were willing to suffer continuously and willing to suffer to the point of dying.
Fact 4, this proclamation of the resurrection was there at the very beginning of the Christian movement. It was not some later add-on. And fact 5, 2 of the earliest to believe in the risen Jesus were former skeptics. Saul of Tarsus, who persecuted Christians and later became the Apostle Paul, Christianity's greatest missionary, and the formerly skeptical James.
The resurrection of Jesus Christ was the turning point in human history. I mean, it is the miracle of miracles. It really has changed everything.